this evening. We are presenting our Deer Run Kindness Club. This is a group of first grade students that met with me at the beginning of the year that wanted to put together a club to give back to the Dublin community. So we are going to quickly introduce our students and they will lead us in the pledge. So we have Evelyn Williamson, we have Aaron Lynch, Corey Hood, Zoe Zimmerman, Hazel Pasha, and at the very end we have Aviva Ayar.
No, just stay there. Okay. Oh, yeah, have them come back here. The board members. You guys too. We're going to turn around and we're going to get some pictures over here, okay? Thank you guys. Thank you.
Okay, do we have approval of the regular meeting minutes for the October 10th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gillis,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
and Mr. Melody.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We have approval of the regular work session meeting minutes for October 24th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
and Mr. Melody.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. And do we have there's a recommendation to approve the agenda as presented this evening for November 17th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gillis,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
and Mr. Melody.
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
At this time, I would like to bring to the podium Mr. Mike Arn, principal of Dublin-Jerome High School.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Dr. Marshausen, board, everybody that's here in attendance tonight. Just a quick introduction here before I bring over Mr. Blind. Just want to say that we had a great fall sports season at Jerome, and the student athletes that you're going to see up here kind of are exemplify that. I want to say to all of you over there, and you can't necessarily all see me because you're kind of behind the column there, I'm super impressed with your resilience and your commitment to what you do. It was so much fun to watch all of you do during the season and really take the opportunity to seize the moment that you had. So I'm really proud of you. Jerome is really proud of you. Our students and teachers are proud of you, and I appreciate all that you do and all the time that you commit, and also maintain your academics and all of those things. And I'm really, really grateful to all of you. So as we celebrate you, just know that we're all standing up here with you. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Blind to introduce the coaches and the athletes.
Thank you, everyone. Again, we had a tremendous season. We had 3 district champions this year in different sports. We had state runner-up. We had a district runner-up, regional runner-up. Just a tremendous season, and very proud of all of our coaches and our athletes. We're going to start with one such athlete and his coach. Coach Waldensterner, please come up, please.
All right, good evening, everybody. This is Sam Mercuti. I'm Dave Waldensterner, head boys cross-country coach at Dublin-Jerome, and it's my pleasure to introduce and help recognize Sam Mercuti tonight. I've had the pleasure of knowing Sam and seeing him flourish since I had him in class in 8th grade, and now he stands here before us as state runner-up in cross-country as an 11th grader. Sam has made the state meet all 3 years in high school, so he's always been very good. This season, however, Sam took the step into elite company and placed 2nd overall in the state of Ohio. This is the highest individual finish for a cross-country runner in Jerome history. Sam is not only an incredible All-Ohio athlete, but he's also an All-Ohio academic athlete and a fantastic overall leader and young man. It's my pleasure to help recognize him tonight for all of his accomplishments. Congratulations, Sam.
Next, I'd like to introduce Coach Butcher and the ladies golf team.
This is nothing, right? Okay. Good evening. I'd like to show my appreciation for honoring a bunch of great girls who work really hard. Before we talk a little bit about the season, you'd be very proud how these girls represent Dublin City Schools, Dublin-Jerome, their family, and community. There's nothing that they wouldn't do for each other, and just a bunch of class acts. Now, above and beyond that, athletically, we had a great season this year. We were the state runner-up in a 2-day state tournament, 614 strokes to 613. It was really close. But the season started, we were 191-9 was our win-loss record. We were undefeated in the OCC for the 6th straight year. We won sectionals and moved on to state, where we finished 2nd out of 12 teams that qualified, which is pretty amazing. Goes beyond that. They accumulated a 4.25 GPA combined between all of them, which is pretty great considering how busy we are. We probably have the hardest schedule in the state, traveling all around, playing 18-hole matches. With me tonight, we've got, here, set a line. Mia Ringer, raise your hand, Mia. Mia is a junior, 3-year varsity winner. We have Alexa Prettyman, who is a sophomore. She's a 2-year letter winner. Addie Yarbrough, who is a 3-year letter winner. We have Maida Pathuru, who is a 2-year letter winner. And we have Ellie Yu, who's a sophomore, 2-year letter winner. And we are one senior, Audrey Yu, who was the state champion last year and the medalist this year. And as far as Academics, I told you a little bit about that. Audrey was Player of the Year for the OCC for the 3rd year in a row. Ellie was first team OCC, first team All Central Ohio. Alexa was first team All OCC, second team All Central Ohio. We have Maida, who was second team OCC and third team All Central Ohio, and Addie Yarbrough, who was first team All OCC and honorable mention for All Central Ohio. So all the girls for this season gained some great accolades, and it showed on and off the golf course. They could probably be in the kindness club, except for when they're on the golf course, and then they get pretty intense. So, but thank you very much for taking the time to honor these guys. Anything they get, they work really hard, is really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Here against, line up here. Nobody wants to stand next to Butcher. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, next up is our prestigious Golden Shamrock Awards. And we have 2 tonight. We're going to start off first. I'm going to invite Jessica Sullivan up, and she's going to share about our first recipient. And Dr. Blevins is going to join us too.
Thank you, Christy. Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Marshausen, and Mr. Kern. It is our pleasure tonight to introduce Amy Klein as one of the Golden Shamrock recipients. Amy has been with our district for 5 years now. During her first 4 years in the district, she served in a coaching position supporting Dublin Kaufman High School. She played a critical role in supporting teachers, administrators, and students during the transition to remote learning. She led the teachers who may not have been confident in their use of technology in the classroom and transformed them into leaders of instructional technology. That is a true celebration. At the start of this year, I have been fortunate enough that Amy has transitioned into a district test specialist TOSA position and has quickly become a strong colleague to everyone at the central office. In this new role, she has become a support for all elementary, middle, and high schools in regards to all things testing related and so much more. She is consistently offering to help others and has already taken on a large data project focusing on organizing IB data to help teachers review and analyze their test results. The time and effort she put into developing a database to support Julie and her IB team is partly what led her to this recognition tonight. However, Amy has always been willing to go above and beyond during her time as a coach in the district and now in her TOSA position. Her dedication to serving the district is greatly appreciated by all those she works with. I want to share just a few of the remarks her colleagues have shared with me. In all of her roles, Amy has been an amazing resource to support teachers. She is patient, pleasant, and dependable. She is very good at anticipating problems and heading them off. Amy is one of the most willing, supportive, and innovative people I've had the pleasure to work with. When we went to virtual school during the pandemic, Amy was invaluable. She worked to ensure not only student success, but also teacher training, and all with a smile. She is patient and always willing to teach and learn. I so appreciate all she does for her colleagues, students, and the Dublin City Schools community. Amy is always, this is another remark, Amy is always excited to help solve problems and create better solutions. She is just so eager to help. I honestly cannot say enough about how appreciative I am of her and all that she does to help our students and staff in this district. She is truly a gift, and I could not agree more. She is truly a gift to our district. With that being said, we congratulate Amy on being one of the Golden Shamrock recipients this month.
I should mention Mr. Putnaki, who normally is here, wasn't able to be here tonight, so we're handing it out on behalf of him. Next, I'd like to invite up Principal Schwartz from Wyandotte Elementary for our next recipient.
It's the only time Debbie doesn't want to be center of attention. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Marchhausen and Mr. Kern. It is my honor and pleasure to celebrate Debbie Borcherding as the Golden Shamrock Award winner for Wyandotte Elementary. Debbie has 30 and a half years of teaching experience, and she has spent the last 17 years at Wyandotte Elementary. Around Wyandotte, Debbie is affectionately known as Borch by her staff and Mrs. B by her students and families. Debbie is truly a bringer of joy and the bright light to everyone at Wyandotte. She truly cares about always doing what is best for her kids and frequently checks in my office and asks the question. It always starts with, I want to make sure I'm not missing something and I'm doing things right. She is the definition of a lifelong learner and continues to work with her teammates, her colleagues, our coaches to make sure she is meeting the needs of all the students in her classroom. Debbie is a kid magnet. Every student wants to have Mrs. B in first grade, and everyone wants to stop in the morning to say hi. She is always ready to give a kid a hug, a laugh, maybe some tough love, tell a joke, or give an antidote to solve a problem. She is not afraid to sing in the classroom, dance on a table, or wear a funny hat to make a teaching point, get the class's attention, or just to have fun with her kids. A few weeks ago, her kids reached a classroom reward. What did they want? Wasn't PJ Day, Tech Day, or Stuffed Animal Day. They chose to have lunch with Mrs. B as their reward. Her students love her positivity. Debbie is always supportive of our students and their families. She is always available to talk to a parent. She is the first to say, let's find a time to talk. She wants to make sure parents have the answers they are looking for, and she wants to make sure she is clear in their understanding. She makes challenging conversations easy because her families know she is a child's biggest cheerleader and their biggest advocate. Her parents know she is always part of their team. There are about 12 pages of notes that other people have written about Mrs. B, so I'm going to give some highlights from those notes. She is eloquent in her delivery of messages, a deep thinker, and truly an integral part of our community. The love and compassion she has for her students is unmatched. She goes above and beyond to support her students, the community, and her coworkers. She has become a role model in my life. One of my sons was not well behaved when he was younger. She took the time and patience and saw the best in him. Debbie is a shining light at Wyandotte. Her smile brightens the classroom and our entire building. She has an incredible heart for children, and she works tirelessly to ensure that everything is successful for all learners. I am proud to be one of the parents, not me, I'm reading it, that gets to sing Mrs. B's praises. The amount of love and laughter she puts into her work is like no other. Above and beyond, one of the most exceptional teachers my kids have ever had. As a fifth grade teacher, my students still talk about Mrs. B daily. Debbie has a heart of gold and teaches with a sense of humor that makes the students so engaged. She goes above and beyond to make sure every student, no matter ability, gets their needs and goals met. She is a caregiver to the first grade. She is nurturing, caring, empathetic. She is fun. My daughter comes home every day with a smile on her face. As a parent, I couldn't have chosen a better teacher for my daughter to have. And 8 years later, she continues to talk about how Mrs. B is her favorite teacher. Her personality is fantastic. Mrs. B is a rock star. Online learning was something that was not perfected, but every morning Mrs. B would have a video ready, a unique costume, and engaging methods for teaching students. As a parent, I even looked forward to her messages. Debbie is the best of the best. She is hilarious, insightful, engaging, empathetic, and a great role model. Borch is a local legend. Her students love her, their parents love her, her former students love her, and her coworkers love her. Her passion for educating students has far outlived any program, theory, or practice thrown her way. Her teaching is targeted and effective because of her vast knowledge of student strength and areas of growth. Everyone who knows Miss B loves Miss B because of her thoughtfulness. This is a little bit bittersweet because tonight Debbie's name is on the board agenda twice. Once to be the Golden Shamrock, and once because she's announcing her retirement at the end of the year. Both of these are very well deserved. Congratulations, Borch.
Well, I did have a few words. No, good evening, board members and Dr. Marshausen and guests. I am honored to be here this evening and grateful to be the recipient of the Golden Shamrock Award. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. But it has been my privilege and my pleasure to not only teach and serve in this community, but to reside in this community as well. These are my people. I have enjoyed building meaningful relationships within the community of Dublin City Schools. I had 19 years, but I think I was a long-term sub for Aaron Friedman, so I'm going to count those in there as well. But some of the most meaningful relationships are with my first grade team of teachers. It has been a blast teaching with you, collaborating and just doing school life with you. So thank you, team, and thank you, Renee. And also for my family, for always listening and supporting and believing in me as an educator of young minds. Thanks.
Yes. Hey, team.
First grade team. They're my people. We can get Tim stuff too if you want. And I'm running for president. I know. You're the best. Okay. Team of teachers first, all right? Coming in. You want to get right in there? Sorry. I should bring the right carpet. We have those. Okay, family want to get in?
Yeah.
That too? Yeah, absolutely. You guys are family, that's you. We know who you are. Get in there. We've seen you before. Get in there. Come on, Mom. Big smiles. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1.
At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium Dr. Jennifer Schwanke, and congratulations to Dr. Schwanke for defending her dissertation on Monday and joining the ranks of the doctors. So I'd like to invite Jen and Tyson Hodges up to the podium as they will begin the process, and our team is here as we outline to the community how we've spent our ESSER funds. So guys, take it away. and we'll all kind of jump in as we go along.
All right. Thank you so much. So Dr. Schwanke and I are going to be up here presenting our ESSER presentation. And there it is. All right. So we're going to be presenting the bulk of the information tonight. But we do have a team available over here of experts that you can ask questions to, and we definitely welcome your questions tonight. All right, so Dublin City Schools received 3 waves of ESSER funding, and that all totaled about almost $17 million. So when we started receiving this money, we wanted to make sure that we got together as a team and deployed this money not only for COVID-19 related expenses, but also for initiatives educational initiatives that we already had in place. So the $17 million, if you look at it spent over 3 years, it represents about 2.3% of our budget. So while we are grateful for this money, it is a small portion of our budget. All right. So ESSER funds came with 3 major intended uses. So safely reopen schools, effectively address learning loss, and mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on our students. So we also had about 15 allowable expenses, but we decided to focus in on 8 of them. So that's training staff for sanitation, procedures, purchasing supplies for cleaning, planning for long-term closures, purchasing educational technology, and helping out with mental health needs of our students, summer learning and supplemental after-school activities. We also wanted to address learning loss, and then improve the quality of our indoor air. All right, so as you can see here, we received $17 million in funding. Of that, we have currently spent about $11 million. So this graphic represents what we've spent so far, that $11 million. So as you can see, the technology and DCS Virtual are the bulk of the expenses, but then we also used our ESSER funding for wellness, academics, safety, and busing. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Schwanke, and she's going to dive into each one of these categories.
Okay, the other thing to remember as I do go a little deeper is that all of these exist together. We need technology to make DCS Virtual work. We need our students to be in a place of wellness, and academics touches all of those areas, as does busing safety, because we can't do the other areas well unless we have those things where we need them to be. So I'm going to go again into detail, and as Tyson mentioned, we have experts around the room. When we learned about ESSER funds and learned what we were going to receive, it started with a blank Excel spreadsheet. It started with meetings, it started with phone calls. We sat in the room and we thought, okay, how can we best spend this money with an eye to all of these bullet points? And what do we really want? And Dublin City Schools' commitment was we want this to help students. We want this at the end to be able to, we want to be able to say that our students benefited from this ESSER allocation. Okay, so technology, 30% of the funds we received was for technology. Chromebooks is the most obvious and public facing, because when COVID landed in our laps in March of 2020, we needed to get devices in the hands of students so they could learn from home, and we needed to do it immediately. So we did, but as Tyson mentioned, we long had a goal in Dublin City Schools of being one-to-one with technology and devices. So really what this did is it accelerated our progress toward that goal. We also needed to spend some funds on related technology, and by that I mean we needed to be able to, at our high schools, buy some equipment that allowed for streaming during that time, and we needed to make sure that our staff technology was up to par to, again, pivot to provide excellent opportunities for instruction. We needed MacBooks, we needed to upgrade some technology. What we have been able to do, too, with the guidance of the brilliant Kelly Ram over there, is develop a replacement cycle, not only for our student Chromebooks, but also for our staff Chromebooks. In a deep, dark hallway on Emerald Campus, we now have a system where broken or damaged Chromebooks are picked up, taken away, repaired, and returned to us. And we didn't have that system set in place beforehand, but now we do. We're really proud of that. Next is DCS Virtual. When I say DCS Virtual, I mean our K-8 online option that we developed in the summer of 2020. This was an option available to all of our elementary and middle school families who chose this rather than in-person learning. And what we needed to do to make this happen was we needed to find some space, renovate it in a place where teachers could have small instructional spaces to teach virtually. And so we used ESSER funds to fund the salaries and benefits of those staff and have the lease and the renovation for the space. We also had some curricular adaptation, and what I mean by that is we did have some training costs in making sure that our K-8 virtual teachers were prepared to teach online and make any adaptations to their curricular and supplemental resources. But the other exciting thing about this is we were able to fold this into another existing dream or goal that we had, which was to really build an online course catalog for our high school students. Previously, we had been using Apex as an option for students who needed to have virtual learning at our high schools or needed credit recovery. What we really wanted was to develop courses that were written by, maintained by, updated by, and taught by Dublin City Schools teachers. And that's what we were able to do. We hired some curriculum course writers, and now what we have is a sustainable model. We're going to continue to build it, and we're going to continue to offer more options for our students, especially in the need of, if they have needs for flexible scheduling options. Shout out to Lori Marple for leading that work as well. Wellness. Now, this is a broad term, and again, it's important to go back to an existing need that we had with our students. COVID did not launch a whole bunch of mental health needs for our students. We saw that need before COVID came, and we had a plan, Mr. Andres had planned in the staffing plan that we were going to add some social workers every year. ESSER funds allowed us to accelerate that initiative. And so we hired counselors and we hired student support social workers. And again, when ESSER funds run out, we're going to be okay because we had built them into our employment budget anyway. Just hurried the process up a little bit. Academics. There's a lot of bullet points here, and I'm just going to give you a little teaser on any of them. You can ask questions later if you'd like. We really wanted to make sure that we were prepared not only for COVID, but COVID recovery and beyond. We offered an optional data analysis day to all of our staff members in the summer of 2021. And what they could do if they wanted to be paid for an additional day in the summer was come in and really study the data that we had available for students that were to be on their roster or on their caseload for the upcoming school year. That was academic data. It was both the current data and then watching their progress over time. And then we were able to leverage panorama results to see if there were any social emotional needs or behavioral needs that our teachers needed to consider. 95 Phonics was something we used ESSER funds for. I'm really, really proud of this. We knew before COVID that we had some thinking to do about how we teach literacy for our very youngest learners. And 95 Phonics is an explicit, structured, phonics-based approach. And we were able to not only purchase that resource, but also use ESSER funds for what is a really large task in a district this size, which is training teachers. Not only classroom teachers, K-3, but also our reading support teachers, our intervention specialists, our principals, who are the ones holding teachers accountable for the routines embedded in 95 Phonics. We hired 2 TOSAs, a teacher on special assignment. This is a 2-year commitment these folks gave to us, and they are providing job-embedded professional development for 95 Phonics. They're going in classrooms, they're going to staff meetings, they're going to team meetings, and making sure that 95 Phonics is implemented with fidelity. The DRA-3, you probably have heard DRA before. This is the Diagnostic Reading Assessment. Our district's used it for about 2 decades, and it allows it's a teacher-administered assessment for students. We can see how they're doing comprehension and fluency and their writing and how all those things mesh together. DRA came out with a 3rd edition, and so we were able to purchase that updated edition for our teachers. We are finishing up an academic audit, and we're so pleased that we were able to use ESSER funds for this. It's going to give us a return on investment on a lot of our programs. The audit is being run by a consultant named PSK12, and they have come into our district and interviewed everyone from Dr. Marshausen to teachers to gifted intervention specialists, all of us at the central office. And what we're really looking forward to is thinking about some programs or resources that we may use or have used for a long time that we might need to eliminate or streamline into something else that exists. And I think that will be a financial boon for us later in the future. And then COSI on Wheels and the Summer Bridge Program, we allocated some ESSER funds for a partnership with COSI. If you had elementary students, you may remember being invited to a parking lot in the summer of 2021 to get a kit where you could enhance at-home learning. They were science and STEM-based, just to keep our students engaged in learning, and a Summer Bridge Program that really targeted students who we were concerned were really going to feel the negative effects of COVID, either socially or academically. So that was the summer of 2021. If you want to recall the depths of COVID, you might remember that we were doing half days for our K through 8 students, and so we had a significant expense on our transportation budget because midday we had to run all the buses around all this big gigantic district we have, and so 8.3% of ESSER funds were spent there. Safety. This is actually a smaller number than many people would think, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, but we did use 3.5% of ESSER funds on PPE, thermometers, and MERV-3 filters to enhance our air quality. Now, some people have asked me, why isn't that higher? I'll tell you why it's not higher. Here's some things we did not spend ESSER funds on. And I'm going to take time to talk here about it because they were very public-facing, and all of these things did have a really positive impact on our families, but we didn't need ESSER funds for it. For example, we had at our elementary and middle schools bus drivers who were already working for us who came in and did midday cleaning between recess and lunch. Wi-Fi in the parking lots was really helpful to many of our families, but was paid for with a grant. Cleaning supplies, as Mr. Stark will agree, we were always buying cleaning supplies. We may have used a little bit more, but we were always buying them, and that was paid for out of the operations budget. Breakfast and lunch distribution, federal dollars gave free lunches and breakfasts to any student who needed them, and we did utilize our bus drivers and our food service staff to assemble and distribute those lunches, but they were all part of existing employment and work opportunities that we had. When our nurses were really buried with contact tracing, thanks to a partnership Dr. Marshausen initiated with OSU, we had some nurses hired as substitutes, and we paid them out of existing budget lines for substitutes. The same with our teachers. Our costs for subs did go up with our teachers, especially when we had 10-day quarantines. They were paid out of the existing fund. COVID test kits and countless masks, we said, Mr. Andres, right? We asked Mr. Andres for a number, but when we got to the 20 and 30,000 number, he just said, just say countless. Countless masks and test kits were given to us by the Department of Health and our Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. So those were no cost to our district. And I do want to note, we did not fund any building projects, any capital projects from ESSER resources. Some districts did, and I want to be very clear that we did not do that. We really wanted to have an impact directly on students on their academic and social growth. That was is this me or is this you, Mr. Is this me? Okay, okay. Now, as Mr. Hodges said earlier, we do still have some money that we spend. Everything we told you about is as of today. We plan to continue to allocate resources to literacy and instruction. We want to continue to improve our classroom technology under the leadership of Kelly Ram, and student wellness remains a priority for our district. So, Dr. Marshausen?
And we have until December of 2024 to expend all of the money that was provided to us. I think by September it has to be encumbered and then spent. Districts are going to be audited because there's a lot of questions about how are they spending their COVID funds. And Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about the oversight for how this is happening?
Yeah, and I think I may have mentioned too, even during my last 5-year forecast presentation, we are audited every year, and our federal programs are audited, and this is the federal monies that are passed down. But as far as ESSER is concerned, there has been even more, I don't know, lack of a better word, scrutiny on different items. For example, and Tyson will attest to this too, these fun things, ODE does what's called desk audits. Where they don't physically come out, but we send them stuff and they kind of review to make sure we're following the proper guidelines. Tyson mentioned 15 of them, and we utilized 8. But even just a simple thing as a cash request, which we always ask for a reimbursement after we spent it, and you have to provide a lot more detail than we have in the past for our normal other grants, federal grants, for example, IDEA or Title I and stuff. Which all have parameters tied to them too, but this one's even more scrutiny. So we really feel, as far as the accountability portion and the compliance portion, that we've really met all the requirements that we needed to do when it comes to ESSER and the eyes that are upon it.
Okay, I want to open it up to questions from the Board of Education, and I do want to acknowledge you might want time to think, because if so, you can reach out to any of the members here of our team, and I can give it my best shot as an answer tonight if you'd like, or utilize any of them if you have questions. Wait time, that's what teachers call it, wait time.
All right, doesn't sound like there's any questions. Thank you very much for the...
All right, I do just want to thank our team. It was a team effort. We wanted to be very responsible, transparent, and have a big impact with these funds. So thank you to everyone from the central office team and our building principals as well, who helped get us where we are today with this money. Thank you.
And Tyson, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, and congratulations again, Dr. Schwanke. It does look like we need to get you a new name tag, though. All right, next up we have public participation for issues on the agenda. There's no one signed up. So Board of Education committees. Does any board members have committee updates?
I guess I'll go. So Monday we had the OSBA conference, and the delegate meeting was held, which I attended. For those of you who don't know, the meeting basically is how the OSBA formulates the legislative platform. So that platform basically tells the lobbyists that OSBA employs what they should lobby for. So whatever is in that platform is what they take to our lawmakers and say, yes, we're for this, no, we're against this. So that's basically what the meeting is about, just going over that platform line by line, looking at the amendments, and then voting on the amendments. It was a very long meeting. It went over by like an hour and a half. But it was interesting. That was my first time actually seeing that process. And my takeaway from it, I think next year, whoever is the delegate, if it's me, I think it would be great for us to go over some of those amendments. So the process, if you remember, the platform comes out in January. I think they posted in January. And then we get up to like August to make resolutions if we want to propose an amendment to the platform. And then the legislative committee looks at those and kind of wordsmiths them, puts them in the platform for the delegates to look at and then vote on. So I think it would be helpful as the delegate to have some input either way, if you want to make changes or if you don't, or just your thoughts or what have you. Otherwise, it's just me voting how I want. So that's it. So I don't know what you all think of that, but I think maybe if we schedule something, a time during one of our meetings closer, before the conference, to maybe go over those.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. We can probably incorporate something like that, maybe even a board retreat, a little breakout on that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other committee updates? So thank you for being the delegate and representing us.
Yeah,
During the long meeting.
Yeah.
Any other committee updates that anyone wants to share?
I think I have, I'm trying to think of all the meetings that we had since the last meeting. Yeah, I think, well, we had the PTO president's meeting today, and we basically went over the ESSER funds and literacy update, and we had the ACT Coalition, Double Neck Coalition. Sue Hudris came and spoke to the PTO presidents. And I think also we had the last PTO president's meeting before that, and we had DEF come and speak, and we had a lot of good conversation around how to write grants and how to propose those and getting the principals involved and that kind of thing. So that was good. And we also, another committee, we had the technology committee. Scott and I attended that at the end of October, and we discussed the replacement cycle, and you can jump in here and add some things. The replacement cycle for the technology, the Chromebooks, and the teachers' laptops and that kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of it was what Dr. Schwanke referred to on the Chromebook support, replacement cycles, repair, distribution, how we're managing that. Like you said, the teacher technology upgrade as well. I mean, managing this many devices from in standardization of technology across the district, especially at the elementary school level, iPads in the classroom, teacher laptops, everything, making sure that we've got the right devices in the right hands of the students. And seeing the growth that we've had in that in the last 2 years is phenomenal. Technology is my background. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis, and supporting this number of devices with the small team that we have is everyone's doing an outstanding job. So there are needs, continued needs in the future on maturing that model and how we continue to support that and make sure we get that support plans in place and the refreshment dollars in place for that going forward. So.
Yeah, and thank you to Kelly Ram for going over all of that with us. And then Scott Gill also spoke to us about the Infinite Campus and streamlining all of that communication. And I don't want to get into that too much because I don't want to confuse people. But it was good to hear. So thank you. And then Kevin Perkins talked to us about the infrastructure.
Thank you. So that was the technology meeting as well. There has been a key communicators meeting and a BAC meeting as well. So I know it's been a busy last month for everyone.
And one more, academics and student learning. We went over a lot. Literacy, there was a literacy update discussing the implementation of 95 phonics. We went over the dyslexia training, which, will you cover that? So I'll leave that to you.
I think you mean dyslexia screener.
Well, training
I want to make
for
sure that
our teachers, the required training that they will complete in the summer.
Absolutely.
All that.
Yep. If anyone is familiar with the dyslexia handbook that is, currently, it has just been passed, and there's still some uncertainties about it and what exactly it looks like, but Dublin City Schools is trying really hard to get out in front of it. We are piloting some assessments that will help us flag students who may need a little bit of extra intervention, and we also, there are 18 required hours of professional development for our primary teachers, and again, a shout out to Mr. Andres and Lori Marple, who got out ahead of this and are thinking of how we can do that. Again, massive undertaking of providing that 18 hours to so many teachers. We're looking at modular, at options that the state is providing, but we're also looking at doing it in-house, virtually, some in person. So we're working through that. We're going to make sure we're compliant and ready to go.
Dr. Schwanke, could you just also just speak to, for parents who might be concerned about that MAP screener that we're piloting, as to when we might know if it's going to be accepted by ODE?
I wish I could answer that. We're all holding our breaths a little bit. And Jessica and Lori, if I misspeak, stand up. But there was no requirement to provide a screener this year. Again, we wanted to get ahead of it, and so we are using the MAP screener from WNEA, and it has already given us a lot of really, really good information. And so we're hoping ODE is going to adopt it. We have no idea when they will, and we don't have any influence on that when either. But what it is allowing us to do is communicate with parents early. If the assessment flags a student, that does not necessarily mean they have dyslexia. It doesn't even mean they have a dyslexia profile. It means that our teachers are going to look deeply into any deficits that child might have. And I don't even want to use the word deficits, because sometimes it can just be a lack of literacy readiness that we're seeing. We did see from the screener we piloted this year that we see a decline in students that are flagged from kindergarten to third grade. And that's exactly what we want, because we know some students, again, come to school at age 5 ready to do some literacy work, and others, they're still learning their letters. So the results were very helpful, and it's just going to help us get better. But Mrs. Rigby, your question, when will we know? I don't know.
One more question, just to clarify, on whatever screener we go forward with, is it K through third grade, every student will be screened? Okay.
Yes, correct. K through 3, every student. I sat in on a training today that Jessica and Lori did with principals, and I was so proud because they had a lot of really, really good questions. We were talking about the cycle of assessments, how often we'll administer it to our youngest students. We talked about how we will communicate with parents. We talked about the talking points we'll use. We talked about how we can make sure our teachers look at every child, because as a reader and writer, every child is different. Some of them are going to need more targeted, explicit instruction in phonics. Some of them just need more time. Some of them need more exposure. Some of them need challenged. And so our message to our teachers has been and will remain, let's make sure that we are responding to the child sitting in front of us, not necessarily a large mass of data for our whole district. I feel really, really good about it. And again, that's I want to give all credit to the team and to the principals who are really on top of this. They're asking great questions about it too.
Okay, thank you for all those updates. So if there's no further updates, we can turn it over to Dr. Marshausen for superintendent comments.
All right, we will begin with our student updates. If we could slide a mic over Dr. Schwanke.
Still not used to that doctor word.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Saweba Newshat. I'm a senior representing Dublin Kaufman High School. Today, with the student report, we'd like to start off. Here we go. We're going to start off talking about Hope Squad, which is the peer-to-peer suicide prevention program launched by the district. But 3 of the 5 board members are members of Hope Squad, so we were fortunate enough to attend the retreat at the Dublin Rec Center, so we'd like to talk a little bit about that. We thought it was really successful and highly applicable. The discussions didn't shy away from the reality and issues of what we're facing. There are currently a few miscommunications among the student population for what Hope Squad is truly about and what we are working towards. So that's what us as students and representatives on the board are trying to work on right now. From the Jerome students, we had an update about the construction, which is still very loud, very crowded, and there are significantly more learning pods. A few events that we'd like to highlight would be the Military Options Night, where we had 2-star General James Camp attend, and there were members present of all branches of the military. Then we had the Halloween celebrations from the elementary schools, as well as veteran story events from Purple Star Club at Scioto, which is for supporting military-connected students in our school and our community. We also had the 8th graders take their DC trip, which is always super exciting, and then a few sports updates. So we had Jerome girls volleyball make it the farthest they've ever had. Girls and boys soccer had very successful seasons at Jerome as well. Kaufman girls volleyball got district title, and the cross-country boys team won 4th in the state. And we also had Scioto football be in the playoffs this year. Thank you.
I would like to add, and I don't know if you guys would like to comment, we are arranging for our students in December to go visit 5 or 6 of our elementary schools that have elementary advisory committees for their principals. So due to the flexibility in their schedules, our board students will go and meet with our elementary students so that by the time we meet in December and January, they will also have feedback from our elementary schools.
Yes, this is very true. We were waiting to share at the next meeting after we had gone, but thank you for sharing. But we will have updates next time.
Yeah, they asked, and I thought, this is a really cool idea. So they're going to go meet with the 4th and 5th grade students who advise their principals at a representative group of our elementary. So we're excited for that.
We're also excited as well. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to a brief update. Last Tuesday, we had our safety day in partnership with the Dublin Police Department. I would like to thank Chuck Collier, Sam Althouse, and Mike Ulring, and our team that put together a full comprehensive day. Part of the building was a tabletop discussion broken into thirds, with a third of our district coming to Kaufman High School. Tabletop led by our partners at Dublin Police. Another portion of the day was focused on safety back in the buildings. As we talk about the applicability of the practices that we plan for, it's building specific. So to be able to do that at one building, the teachers have to go back and assess, where are we? What is my room situation? What would I do in the event that there was a threat in my building, in my space? And our principals and our team did a phenomenal job. Unfortunately, also within the last 2 weeks, we've had a couple situations where we've got to practice some of our responses. And it highlights the critical importance to how we do the work and how we prepare to think about things that really no one wants to think about. And the way our Kaufman team responded a couple weeks ago to a crisis and the way our Scioto team responded last week was exceptional. It kept our students safe. And we continue to work on that communications crisis with our parents. When we partner with our police department and our communications team works with the communications team at the police department to make sure that moms and dads first are getting accurate, timely information to let them know what's going on, to reassure them when a situation has been handled, and then to let our entire community know how a situation has been handled at one of our schools. That partnership is critical, and we are so thankful that we continue to find ways to get better. We've started having after-event reviews. So after an event, we pull the leaders together and say, what did we do well? What could we do better? And what changes are we going to make? And we continue to find ways to live that value that is always growing, embrace the journey. And as a team, we've made changes after each event that make us better. And we hope we never have to use them, but we are thankful that we have the partnership that we do with our police, our law enforcement, Washington Township Fire, increasing collaboration with our partners in Columbus as we continue to seek that type of support from the municipalities that we serve as a district. Just an update on what's coming, and nobody really wants to think about winter weather, but we started to get some snow. So just to remind everybody, Jeff has folks coming to bus garages, warming up buses, and maintenance crews that are on the road by 4 a.m. I'm in communication with Jeff and his team and with my superintendent peers by 4:30 a.m. We're having conversations about where are the roads like in what are the roads like in different parts of the district? When can we get parking lots cleared? And what do those conditions look like, as well as communications with the local police departments and the meteorologists as to what is this going to look like. Our goal is a decision by 5:15. We want to be able to let, in this order, staff know first, followed by students and parents, and then we hit that social media and traditional media. I'm not sure anybody looks at the crawl on the bottom of Channel 10 to find out if we have school anymore. Because we can send you a text message if you get online and you sign up for our text alerts. You will get those as soon as those come across. And we will also push it on all of our social media platforms. We know that we've got students jumping in a pool with swim team at crazy early mornings. We know we have kids reporting to weight rooms. And we know that we have a lot of different things going on, and the earlier we can let parents know, the better. If you are a parent who doesn't want to get a text message at 5:30 because it's all elementary students in your family, you can adjust those settings in your phone to put us on silent when those come across. But our goal is to get that out as quickly as possible when we do have winter weather. I've been asked, do we do 2-hour delays? We know that 2-hour delays are an incredible burden on our families, and we know that it is a disproportionate burden on our lower socioeconomic families. I don't know the last time that Dublin did a 2-hour delay, but it's something that we would avoid. Is it a tool in the toolbox? Maybe, but it wouldn't be without a lot of warning if we were going to do that. I also understand that districts that do 2 hours delays then close 90 minutes later, frustrate people because they make plans and then I got to find childcare. Our goal is to be early and to be consistent. If we can get our kids to school, we're going to have school. And I know we had a foggy morning a little bit ago, and I had a number of students send me pictures from their cars while they were driving at the fog. I did point out to them that it's probably not a good idea to take pictures while you're driving. And I also let them know that we do have a fleet of 150 buses. And if students don't feel comfortable driving in certain weather conditions, I directed those students back to their principals who will help find their bus stops for them and let them know that we are happy to safely get them to school if they don't feel safe driving themselves. So we are always happy to pick up kids if those road conditions are things that make them uncomfortable. So we're on it with the winter weather. If we can get there, we're going to get there. And then finally, our final community conversation of 2022 is scheduled for next Tuesday at the Chamber of Commerce. We will be posting the dates for those community conversations for the first part of 2023 before our next board meeting. We also want to let people know that they've raised 2 questions. And I know some folks, as we talk about issues that people are passionate about, want an opportunity to engage us and our staff and our board about specific topics. So in January, we are going to host a community conversation on literacy, similar to what we did about books and policies earlier this year. So we will set aside 90 minutes. Our team will be here. We will present 20, 25 minutes where we are, how we've gotten here, what we're doing. And then we will engage any community members who are interested in an open dialogue on our literacy. And then in April, we will do a community conversation on safety, where we will have our partners here with us and parents who want to ask questions. We will share what we can share. There are some of our safety plans that aren't public, and they aren't public on purpose. But we will have a community conversation on safety, what training we provide, what we do, and how we operate in those ways. We want our public to know we are here to have those conversations, and we'll have those opportunities. Those events will both be in evenings as we do the engagement with our public. Any questions from our board members?
I'm sorry, I should have asked this earlier when we were talking about ESSER, but it's a little bit along this topic. Will we have maybe a frequently asked question section for parents to go if they have questions that were unanswered from the ESSER presentation tonight?
Yes, if someone emails either me or Dr. Schwanke, we will, if we get a bunch of questions, we will create a frequently asked questions page and share those answers out to our public. And Mrs. Rigby, if we get a bunch of questions that are similar, we can do an update at the December board meeting as well. We can do follow-ups for people who have questions on that. And if you guys as board members get questions and you want to send them our way, feel free. If there are things that come to you, we'll be able to work through that as well.
I don't know if you said this, but do you know when you might have a date for the January community conversation?
Well, we're just waiting right now on double checking availability at the chamber.
Okay.
And as soon as we get that, we will post those on the website and then share them with you as a board. Okay? Oh, I do have one recommendation. Toll's report is there, and the recommendation is to appoint Mr. Ireland for another term to serve as our representative to the Toll's Board of Education. Tom does a great job. He's a member of our Business Advisory Council. He's a member of our business community here in Dublin, and he knows both what we need in Dublin and the career tech side of things. So my recommendation to the board is that we appoint Mr. Ireland for another term.
All right, thank you. On that note, it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the attached resolution for the Tolles Career and Technical Center representative from Dublin City Schools to be Tom Ireland for another term. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby?
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis?
Yes.
And Mr. Melody?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. And a big thank you to Mr. Ireland for willing to serve as that representative for another term. He is at a Tolles board meeting this evening, so he cannot be with us. So, all right, Mr. Kern, treasurer comments.
Yes, talking about board meetings, earlier, about a week or so ago, circulated the proposed board meetings for 2023 calendar year. Take a look at those. I know Mrs. De Silva mentioned she had one conflict, and it is one of my important meetings, is our year-end statutory approvals that we have according to appropriations is June 29th. So all meetings are important, but that one's extra important as we close out the year and the deadlines we have. And so if anyone else can't make that meeting, let me know, or any other meeting, and we'll try to work around people's schedule because we want everybody to be here if so possible. So just again, take a look at that. I know it's a little ahead of time and hard to do, but we will approve that at the organizational meeting, first meeting in January. That sets the calendar for the year, which, as you know, we can adjust as we go along. But at least it's nice to have stuff ahead of time to go forward. On the agenda this evening, we have 3 items. We have the annual junior varsity hockey reimbursement agreement. For any time we have this is essentially what it is, funding a coach or coaches to help out with our junior varsity programs for hockey, if there are any. We do have quite a bit of donations this evening, or I'd say quite at least 4 here. A sizable one from DEP PTO to the building for building and student supplies. The Dublin Music Boosters, both to Griselle and Eversole Run to help support their music program. And then we have an anonymous donation of a cello to the music program at Eversole. So as we always say, we're very appreciative of whether it be our booster groups, our PTOs, or members of our public, or other, whether it be Chamber of Commerce or anyone else, we're appreciative of those donations. And also this evening, and finish up with, is our financial reports for September and October. These reflect the updated forecast from this fall and the estimates. As we're just barely into the year, we are in line with estimates, and we'll see as things progress along. As always, the big thing I always like to talk about and see is as we go into the first of the year, shortly here, I'm assuming most of you, will be getting your tax bills for the year, property tax bills. I know no one likes to pay them, but 80% of our funding does come from those tax bills. So those will be coming out soon, and then the collections, of course, will kind of roll in January, February, and March, depending on when the deadlines are for the 3 counties that we sit. So that's always the one thing we always like to look as those first half collections come in. But at this point in the year, in revenues, expenses, we're in line with estimates at this point. Are there any questions on anything?
Okay, thank you. All right, item 8E, it is recommended by the treasurer that the Board of Education approve items 8B, approval of the junior varsity hockey reimbursement agreement, 8C, approval of donations, and 8D, approval of the financial reports. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, additional questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby?
Yes.
And Mr. Melody?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Okay, Deputy Superintendent comments.
None this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Chief Operating Officer.
Good evening, everybody. I got about 9 items here, so I'll go through them quickly, but they're all very exciting. But you stop me at any time, and I'll answer any questions you have. The first one up is a farm lease. We don't see this often, but here we have one, and it's with Maynard Moody Jr., and this is actually for the 97 acres that we just recently purchased. He has been farming the land. We were glad that he was open to making a deal with us to continue farming this land. What it does for us is it mitigates any future wetlands. So when we do want to build there, the land is in good condition. So this is a 1-year agreement. It brings a small amount of revenue to us. It also gives us a continuing tax break for the Treasury Department. And it's a 1-year lease. There's an out clause if we need to, but all the time, and I don't think we'll ever need to, and we'll manually have to renew it. The next item is approval for resolution for building assessments. So if you remember, the board approved us to do assessments of our secondary buildings earlier this year. And those assessments are almost complete, and at one point we'll probably give the board a presentation on that. And what that is, when professionals come in and they go through our entire building, from roofs, the HVAC, the building envelope, the parking lots, all the athletic equipment, and they give us forecasts of what's at end of life and what needs. And we really use these as our compass for where we put our our permanent improvement dollars. We do these every 5 or 6 years, and this is to recommend Legat Architects to do it for our elementary. They were awarded this, recommended from a request for proposal we put out there, and Legat is very, very experienced at this, and they do actually a lot of work for the OFCC with this very same work. The next item is a utility approval. So the board has to approve all easements that we have, and this is for approval for an underground utility easement. It's actually with the City of Dublin. If you remember that we had a building on Franklin Street, the Bridge Street building, and this is about the improvements that the City of Dublin are making there. This easement is actually benefits us because it erases an old AEP easement. It creates a new easement, but less of our land is impacted. And as all with all easements that we put, they'll have to check with us on when they want to do the work so we ensure there's no interruption to Indian Run Elementary. The next item is about Latchkey. So the board a few years ago approved an agreement with Latchkey. It was a formal agreement so they can rent our facilities and do work there. This is an amendment to that agreement which basically allows them to use our license to serve food there. They can piggyback off that license so they can also serve snacks or anything they need to hold in the fridge. The next one is our annual resolution to purchase school buses. So as you know, with our PI dollars, we have about $6 million of PI every year. We try to put $1.5 million of that towards buses to make sure that our fleet gets turned every 12 years. We're happy to say over the last 7 years, about 65% of our fleet is new. After this purchase, our oldest bus in the fleet will be a 2008 bus, so we're very proud of this. This year, we're buying a few less buses, and there's a couple reasons for that, and you'll see one of the resolutions coming up, is when COVID hit, that year and a half we had COVID, we drove a lot less miles. So there's a lot less miles on our buses during that time. But we're still putting the $1.5 million of PI dollars towards it. But what we did this year is the $1.5 million is made up of some radio purchases, which we've already made. And these are going to be new radios for the buses that increases bandwidth, it's more secure, and it also has better range. But also, we're asking for 6 new 72-passenger buses and 1 65-passenger bus with a lift. And we got this from the cooperative bid done by Meta. So Meta does a cooperative bid. By the way, we take place in that. The board approved us to take place in that in August. When we did the bid on our own, the last 2 years we did that bid, we only had about 1 person put in for it. So when we go through the cooperative meta piece, we get lots of best-in-class prices, and we can also start to choose our manufacturer, so we don't have multiple manufacturers in the shop that we have to repair. Along with the transportation dollars, we're also asking the board tonight for an additional $264,000 with Tyler Technologies. Tyler Technologies is the group that does our software, which happens to be Versatrans, and we just signed an agreement with them to make it what's called Traverse Stands, which is like Versatrans 2.0. I've been reading the news lately. This is Versatrans. This is the company that City of Columbus, I believe, just went back to. So we've had good luck with Tyler, and this new software that we bought earlier in the year allows this next amendment that you're seeing for $264,870, and that is to purchase an interactive tablet on every one of our buses. So now our buses will be able to, so for example, if we need a bus driver to have a new route, right now they have to drive all the way back into the transportation lot. We give them this paper route. Let's say they don't know the route that much. They don't have a GPS navigation like you do on most cars now. This tablet provides a GPS navigation. It provides us allowed to download information instantaneously to the driver, and it also has real-time GPS, which is so important in the event of an emergency. And we'll be putting television screens up everywhere so everyone can see it. But God forbid there's an emergency of any type, we can automatically see visibly. We have so many buses here, so maybe we need to get buses to a point or away from a point, and we can see that right away. Our last piece on transportation is we usually on every school year will go up till January 1st about payment in lieu. We can't do it all at once because sometimes residents don't realize they have payment in lieu coming towards them and they apply late for it. We usually make that cutoff date around January. So this is for a few more payment in lieus that have recently come through. Next up is this SBA Steel Amendment. And this one here, I put this in my weekly report, and I won't go through every detail unless there's questions, but you'll see at Kaufman and Scioto we have cell towers, and those cell towers bring in revenue to the district. And not only do they bring in revenue, but it also is a bit of an enhancement because it brings better cell phone coverage for the immediate area. And when we lease those, just like it's like a land lease, and we get revenue. So one of the poles that are up there, the person leasing it from us wants to sublease a piece of the pole to Dish Network. And we were going to split the revenue with them. So it doesn't add any additional poles. It doesn't add, it's just another piece of equipment that goes on there. It brings an additional revenue to us. And what they'd also like to do is extend their lease. Their lease was originally up with us on another few years, and they want to extend it to 2046. And there is an out clause on there, but it's ready there. And you can see that right now our rent on just this one pole is about $34,000 a year, and it has a 3% escalator. And this sub piece will bring another close to $11,000 annually with a 2% escalator. And lastly, the Kaufman Building Envelope Project. This is a big, big project. This is the project that the board approved earlier this year that will change everything around the Kaufman building. I don't know if you remember, we gave some renderings of it. It will actually change the color of the building from that light tan to a bronze with the siding. This past year, they did all the brickwork, a lot of tuck pointing. This GMP, and this is a very, very, very involved GMP. The good news is it's coming in at about $3 to $4 million less than we anticipated, and that is because of the good work by CTL, by Robinson Construction, who's represented here by Clay Keith, who's done a phenomenal job. And I also want to give a shout out to our own Kevin Klingler, who went above and beyond. There are so many details that are involved with this project. It's just a ton of details, and he has done a ton of work bringing it all together. So we're proud to say this today that this is GMP 2. There will be a third GMP, but it'll be less than this. But this one is a big one. This is the major one for $7.9 million, and this will procure all the metal wall panels. It'll procure the window replacements and refurbishments, a new gym metal roof for the auxiliary gym, a new main gym flat roof, and replacement refurbishment of the exterior doors and frames. So by approving this GMP tonight, we can start to order all of this and start this work early next year. We've also already met with the principal of Kaufman to show him the schedule. Because obviously we're going to have to do some of the work. Some of the work will be done in the summer, and some will be done during school. And we wanted to show him the parts done during school to ensure that it won't cause any unnecessary interruption. And that is, I believe, all my 9 items.
Okay, if there are no questions for Jeff, item 11J, it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve items 11A through 11I, all the items that Mr. Stark just reviewed. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby?
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis?
Yes.
And Mr. Melody?
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, Executive Director of Human Resources.
Good evening, members of the board. I will start with the certified section tonight of the HR agenda. And the first item up for you is one administrator retirement. Jenny Davis will be retiring as the principal of Thomas Elementary at the end of the school year with 24 years in our district. There are 5 certified retirements on tonight's agenda, as well as 2 resignations. Just quickly hitting the high points of the retirements. Debbie Borcherding, who was up here earlier, will be retiring from Wyandotte Elementary with 19 years in our district. Linda Clark will be retiring from Bailey Elementary with 32 years in Dublin. Dan Foley, retiring from Dublin Kaufman with 29 years of service. Brett Ray will be retiring from Davis Middle School with 34 years in Dublin. And Doug Swanson will be retiring from Davis Middle School with 13 years of service in our districts. We want to thank each of them just for their dedication and support throughout the years. You'll see several resignations on for supplemental contracts and pupil activity contracts. These are primarily corrections that have been made to ensure accurate payment of services. And then there are 2 attachments, pupil activity contracts and supplementals that cover a wide array of athletics, academics, extracurriculars, and club activities for fall, winter, or the entire school year. And then lastly, in this section, 2 athletic event workers are on the agenda for your approval as well. Moving on to the classified agenda, you'll see 8 resignations and 2 retirements. For retirements, Patty Bedner will be retiring as a crossing guard from Scottish Corners with 14 years of combined service in Dublin. And then Kim Calicott will be retiring as head cook from Chapman Elementary with 21 years of service in our district. There are 7 new hires on tonight's agenda, and then you'll also see 5 salary changes on, as well as 2 unpaid leave of absences on for your approval. And then moving on to the stipends, there are 4 of them on tonight. The first is a revision of a previously approved stipend that's due to adding staff members who will serve as first-year Dublin mentors to newly hired teachers. And then the other stipends provide our English learner teachers with professional learning through the EL Institute. And these 3 stipends are paid throughout our Title III grant. And that concludes the HR portion of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And if there are no questions, item 13D is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve items 13A, personnel action items certified, 13B, personnel action items classified, and 13C, stipend requests. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, if there are no questions, please call the roll.
Mrs. De Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby?
Yes.
And Mr. Melody?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Okay, Director of Community Engagement.
I'd like to highlight a program that we had the opportunity to host a tour for yesterday. The Leadership Dublin program, which is sponsored by the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, is an annual program for executives, and it develops leadership and introduces people who live or work in our community to many facets of Dublin. And we had about 25 members of this year's cohort come and visit us and spend the day with Dublin City Schools. They started off here at Central Office and had an overview, some highlights about the district, and then they boarded a school bus and they got to travel to visit several buildings. Each year we rotate the buildings that members of the Leadership Dublin program visit. And this year they started off at Griselle, and next they went to Jerome. I heard, you can see in the picture, they got to visit The Knot, which is a cafe that students with disabilities can serve coffee and things, and they got to have coffee with them, and it was fantastic. They raved about it. at their Kindness Cafe. And then they went to Hopewell next, and I love this picture. You'll see in the middle, they participated in a music class, and I think there was even a video of them, and it was just amazing. It was a really positive experience. They came back to Emerald Campus, and Dr. Blevins, who is a member of the cohort this year, she's participating in the program along with Lori Marple. They had a tour of Emerald Campus, and then to round off their tour, they spent some time with Mr. Kern and Dr. Marshausen and got to ask any questions their heart desired. And they had a really great conversation about many important topics in our district. It is a wonderful program. It runs for 8 months, and I actually had the opportunity to participate several years ago, and it's a great way for us to get to connect with leaders in our community. Many are parents that live in our district and have students in our schools. Some are not, and some work here, but they were very engaged throughout the whole thing, and it's always fun to get to show off our schools and our programs and the wonderful things about our district. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, items for board discussion or future agenda items. Okay, just a reminder, there is only one meeting in December to wrap up the calendar year. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.